Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is the LO3 podcast. My name is Craig, transmitted from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Tuesday, December 17, 2019. Yes, after the first segment, I accidentally hit the stop button instead of it touching the pause on the Uni Rehabilitation, the Nunes' letter, dismantle, shift over, FISA lies, etc. Well, what I've done was had that set up for that one part, but just say I apologize for the inconvenience. It's one of those things that happens when you do podcasts, right? And we all have our discrepancies, okay? That's all in good faith. However, I got a few more here I'm going to talk about. And this one I just got earlier today to be exact, or yesterday to be exact. And it's in reference to the Border Guards Act. And this is from the organicpreppa.com. Daisy Luther is her name. You should look her up. She's real good content. Always enjoy reading her material. So someone here, North American unions, a question. U.S. and Canadian border guards can act against citizens in each other's countries. Can we all say Club of Rome, my friends? Precisely. All right, that's what Daisy Luther has to say about this. And it came out Sunday, it was December 15th, Bill of Rights Day. And it reads, have you heard that crazy conspiracy theory about North American Union that would meld the U.S., Canada, and ostensibly Mexico into one big happy mishmash similar to the EU? Nuts, right? Maybe not, because the Canadian government has signed away the sovereignty of its border to the U.S. government with the Canada-United States pre-clearance agreement. Before you can say this Canada's problem, you should probably note that it isn't just Canada who signed away the rights of its citizens with this agreement. What is the Canada-United States pre-clearance agreement? It is another of those horrifying documents with happy-sounding name, sort of like the Patriot Act in August of this year. The Homeland Security cheerfully announced. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security announced today, in the partnership with the Public Safety Emergency Preparedness in Canada, the implementation of an agreement to improve mutual security and expedite lawful travel through pre-clearance for travelers and their accompany bagging on certain transports. The collaboration is articulate in the agreement on land, rail, marine, and air transport. All right, which is LRMA, L-R-M-A, acronym for that. Pre-clearance between the United States government of the United States and the government of Canada, which supersedes the previous 2001 U.S.-Canada agreement on transport pre-clearance and expand the two countries' partnership. Oh, yes. God bless the New World Order. Pre-clearance is what is the process by which officers stationed abroad inspect and make admissibility decisions about travelers and their accompanying baggage before they leave a foreign port, simultaneously increasing efficiency and security. The LRMA provides legal framework and reciprocal authorities necessary for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection and the Canadian Border Services Agency to carry out security facilitation and inspect processes in the other country. Pre-clearance strengthens economic, competitive, and mutual security and benefits travelers by expediting their clearance into the U.S. before they leave Canada. Said Acting Secretary Kevin McAleenan. This agreement provides the opportunity for CBT to build on 6 decades of successful operations and, for the first time, to conduct full pre-clearance in the rail, ferry, and cruise ships environments. This achievement is important for the domestic security objectives, and it's another example just how close U.S.-Canada relationships stand. Gosh, that friendly? What does it mean for Canadians? If you read the immigration rhetoric in this op-ed, you'll find that much of what American Border Patrol officers can do on Canadian soil is against the law in Canada, if Canadians do it. The author writes, U.S. officials can now carry sidearms in these pre-clearance zones, conduct strip searches, record and keep passenger information, and detain Canadian citizens. Even if an official is unwilling to conduct a search or has deemed a detainment unnecessary, a U.S. official can override that call. In other words, Canadian law enforcement can now be countermanded within Canada by Americans. This new authority also allows U.S. border guards to deny Canadians their rights of withdrawal. Before the amendment to law was enacted, if a person felt it at all uncomfortable in the course of pre-clearance questioning, she could simply leave, retracting her intentions to cross the border with no penalty. Now, as a result of amendments, the guard is entitled to detain her if he finds reasonable grounds to do so. So he can assume reasonably. Kind of, sort of means yes, because I got the entitlement. And the request to leave in itself could be construed as reasonable grounds. Assuming is legit. So before the Canadian even leaves Canada, they can be strip searched, questioned, and detained by Americans on Canadian soil. What does this mean for Americans? Right now, you'd be scoffed, stupid Canadians. If so, then please pre-read the DHS said above. Canadian agents can act on U.S. soil as per this agreement too. The LRMA provides a legal framework and reciprocal authorities necessary for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, which is CBP, and the Canada Border Services agencies to carry out security facilitation and inspect processes in the other country. And there's some sources you can look it up for yourselves. Authoritarian action can be taken against citizens in their own countries by agents of foreign countries. A friend of mine noted that, coincidentally, the United States, Mexico, Canada, or USMCA trade agreement was just signed last week too. I'll get that in a little bit. It's enough to really make you wonder what the hell is going on. We got civil war brewing over in Virginia, the government permitting Canadian border control to act on U.S. soil, Massachusetts taking your car if you're caught with untaxed vaping products, and the impeachment circus in Washington, D.C. There is a dramatic shift happening right now, and we all need to pay strict attention. I don't have the answer, but I'm sure to have a lot of questions. It's intriguing indeed. What you're seeing right now actually violates Article 6 of our U.S. Constitution. Because this certain treaty is negated. Period. And what really they want, the Homeland Security wants to use the so-called Constitution-free zone, which is nothing more than a rhetorical deception. They don't make excuses to sell you something to keep you safe, but they want to give you the ram into the rear end treatment. And you go, yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, master. May I have another? That's what they're pursuing, folks. Club of Rome 101. Part of the New World Order agenda. Right under our noses. And this is why the Trump impeachment hearings is a total farce. A mass distraction, have us bickering over one another, and we can be rained upon. So I want to bring this next article here from the John Birch Society. John McManus, who is emeritus president of this organization, is actually by Robert Elderman, excuse me. It says here, Mexico protests USMCA labor provisions. As it reads, one of the sticking points during negotiations over the USMCA between Mexico and the United States was the issue of national sovereignty. Ironically, its Mexican trade negotiator, Jesus Sade, not America's Robert Lighthizer, who considers the matter worth fighting over. Yeah, you see that? Absolutely. So, we'll continue on here. After a long day of heavy negotiations on Friday, December 6th, Sade warned, "We are very willing to find mechanisms, provided it's all done in a manner that is consistent with our Constitution and laws and our sovereignty. What issues is House Democrats demand that a treaty contain provisions for U.S. bureaucrats to inspect Mexican factories to make sure they are meeting the new provisions of the USMCA regarding wages and the rights of unions to organize their workers. As it just appeared that a compromise has been reached, Sade protested on Sunday against the new provision just tucked into the agreement at the last minute that would permit the United States to install 5 new attaches in Mexico to monitor his country's labor reform mandate under the USMCA. Sade complained that he was now not consulted over the addition of the new provision, calling it unnecessary and redundant and claiming that it violates Mexico's national sovereignty. And he's right. It's interesting because if you folks recall the TPP, yeah, if you remember the TPP, you know, and the TPP, yeah, I think, yeah, yeah, trade, yeah, okay, yeah, it's, no, excuse me, not the TPP. SPP, Security and Prosperity Partnership. Very similar. And what's funny because on that aspect, they had they want to have an actual inspection in Kansas City, Missouri, which is on Mexican jurisdiction. See how this goes? The little person gets screwed one way or the other. The working class person. Doesn't matter what country you're from in these particular entitlements. In an editorial published by the Wall Street Journal on Sunday, the words national sovereignty didn't appear. But instead, the USMCA's demand for politically managed trade was presented as a potential stumbling block for the deal, said the editors. In many respects, the New Deal is worse than NAFTA, especially it bows to politically managed trade. The revised NAFTA agreement interferes with automakers' decisions by demanding new rules of origin for much of a new car's content. It also mandates that vehicles being built in Mexico are made by workers making at least $16 an hour. As the New American noted, traditionally free trade presupposes the free flow of goods across borders without intervention of government. However, international arrangements, such as NAFTA, do not seek to remove government from international trade, but rather to employ more government over it. Sounds more like a very global fascistic platform. And we can add neo-mercantilism to that, right? When Socialist President Netillo signed the USMCA on his last day in office, November of last year, he called it the economic integration of North America. It could create a binding supranational authority over the United States, which, as we noted at the time, unelected appointed bureaucrats supersede the will and authority of the American people. Specific instances in the 2,400-page treaty empowered a free trade commission that makes USMCA a living agreement with powers to change the agreement without the approval of U.S. Congress. Okay, another unconstitutional perspective Article 6 once again. The irony should be obvious. Mexico is complaining that the USMCA violates its national sovereignty, while the U.S. media, including conservative Fox News, remain deathly silent over the threat. Yeah, because it's President Trump, our Lord and Savior. Hallelujah. Today has offered a compromise that the agreement allow reciprocal measures so that unelected Mexican bureaucrats can enter and inspect U.S. factories to make sure they are living up to the agreement. In normal times, this would be the ultimate deal killer, but there are not normal times, and the clock is ticking for Congress to pass the USMCA before it adjourns for the year on Friday. It is increasingly likely that national sovereignty give way to political expediency during the rush to adjourn and give the president his victory. So, you folks, go to JBS.org, look under legislation, and let people in Congress know. Say no to the USMCA. Very Orwellian indeed. Extremely Orwellian indeed. Can't argue with that. So, one of those things, my friends. Another New World Order platform. You see what's going on here? Everything's going hand in hand in these predicaments, and it's extremely treacherous to the working class people. All right, so I do find it unacceptable indeed, and very anti-open free market. All right, this is what John F. McManus says, who is President Emeritus of the John Birch Society, from NewAmerican.com. This one's here. Forget left versus right. Obey the Constitution. The terms left versus right and liberal versus conservatives are commonly employed in our nation and elsewhere. But while using such terms is a widespread practice, then there exists plenty of confusion. The Washington Post recently employed the word conservative to describe political attitudes of former President Barack Obama. Yeah, exactly. So President Barack Obama. Sorry about that. That choice simulated a rash of laughter, even anger from numerous political pursuits. Obama was and remains an advocate of big government, which puts him on the liberal side of political thinking. Describing him as conservative is an absurdity, but a lot of us would call him a Hamiltonianist. History tells us that the terms left and right were first used during the French Revolution, which began in 1787 and tore France apart for at least 10 years. The French legislators and people who support the revolution were deemed to be on the left. Those who prefer retaining or returning to the monarchy was considered to be on the right. From the days of French upheaval until modern times, leftists have considered advocates for more government power, while rightists were considered advocates of individual liberty with minimal government involvement in the lives of the people. The terms have been applied to righteous attitudes, with those holding strict religious values being categorized as left-wing, and those with fewer or no religious affiliations deemed left-wing. Because there's right-wing, and those fewer, no religious affiliations deemed left-wing. I may say left-wing twice. I'll probably hear that later. As I continue on, which labels describe today's America. Our nation has the conservatives who want less government and liberals who customarily look to government to solve every problem, even going to questionable wars. Sure, describing Barack Obama as a conservative muddies the water. Even the staunchest supporters must chuckle when hearing such nonsense. Obama was and remains a champion of government power and never should be deemed a conservative. I will say he was a bend-over Bob to the new... He is a bend-over Bob to the New World Order. So prove me wrong, all you Obamanoids out there. Conservatives have also been viewed as those who want to preserve the status quo, while liberals have been viewed as wanting to change the status quo. The problem with using this approach The basis for determining who is a liberal or conservative is that political reforms become the new status quo when implemented, meaning that the old liberal positions in support of the reforms becomes new conservative position. In case of Obama, perhaps the new progressives in the Democratic Party are so far left that Obama now appears conservative by comparison, at least though through the lens of the Washington Post. The U.S. Constitution, which limits federal government and specifies its powers, provide a better yardstick for determining who falls on which side of the great political divide in America. Those who support minimal government under the conditions are constitutionalists, and those who do not are the opposite. Labeling anyone liberal, conservative, or leftist or rightist in these turbulent times misses a very important point, is that the test of individuals' political or economic leanings in the United States is inheritance and non-inherited inheritance to the U.S. Constitution. If the Constitution were being obeyed, there would be no federal involvement in education, energy, transportation, foreign aid, undeclared wars, and a host of other areas where no authorization has ever been given for federal involvement. America became great not because of what federal government did, but because of what federal government was prevented from doing by the Constitution. And America would become greater still by adhering to the wisdom contained in the still existing venerable document. Though largely ignored by presidents and members of Congress, the Constitution still exists. It should be obeyed, and those powers not delegated to the national government by the Constitution should be exercised by the states or the people. As stated in this Constitution, 10th Amendment, ending federal encroachment of states' powers would enable the states to once again compete to be the one where a person would prefer to live, where there would be few impediments to building a business and raising a family, etc. Competition produces excellence. The people of this unique nation should rely on a new test for politicians and policies. Forget left or right and discard liberal conservative. Tests should be constitutional or unconstitutional, adherence or non-adherence to the document that allow the American people to build our nation to become the envy of mankind should replace the worn out and confusing adjectives that muddy today's waters. Not doing so will contribute to continuing the slide into total government, something very few Americans prefer. No American should want that. And he's absolutely correct. And I would like to recommend everyone read the U.S. Constitution, examine it more thoroughly to the best of your ability, plus read Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers. You can get it at the bookstores, online, library, etc. It's all out there. And you can see how they battled, had differences way back when too. You can call them arch conservatives today. It's good to know these areas. We the people, have obligations, not bitch and complain, but take action, petition, like what's happening in Virginia. I talked about that in my show Saturday, about the Constitution Showdown. You can look that up too. And it doesn't matter what you think about these organizations, but the information's good, share it with others. That's what counts. I met John McManus, and I did have people try to recruit me to join the John Birch Society, and I'm not condemning them, but their information is good. I do my research as well, and I always give they got a lot of good merit. Support principles, folks. Principles over party and paradigm. All right. Speaking about guns, this was originally released November, but got released again on December 2019. The Future of Freedom Foundation. Banning guns will not make schools safe. It's by James Broward. As it reads here, school shootings have become the latest pretext for politicians to destroy the Second Amendment. Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, declared in the Democratic presidential candidate debate, "I was part of the first generation that saw routine school shootings. We now have produced a second school shooting generation in this country. We dare not allow there to be a third." Another Democratic presidential candidate, Eric Swalwell, who is an Orwellian Christian by faith, Democrat from California, invoked school shootings to justify confiscating millions of firearms across the nation. It is not just the violence that they've caused, it's the fear, the immeasurable fear that our children live in because they are still on our streets. I want to get rid of that fear. If Jesus was around, who'd call you an apostated chump? That's right, a blasphemous chump. That'd be a better word, okay? I will continue. In reality, despite a tidal wave of misleading propaganda, the number of school shootings has fallen sharply over the past 30 years. But anti-gun activists in government and the media have done their best to persuade people otherwise. Last year, the Federal Education Department reported that 240 schools reported at least one incident involving school-related shooting in the 2015-2016 school year. National Public Radio investigated and found that the feds had exaggerated school shootings by 20-fold. NPR could only confirm only 11 instances. Cleveland was credited with 37 shooting incidents, when in reality it was simply reports of 37 schools that noted possession of a knife or a firearm. In DeKalb County, Georgia, a toy cap gun fired on the school bus counted as a school shooting. Our school system was listed as shooting locale for an incident involving a pair of scissors, NPR noticed. They love those buzzwords. Remember, propaganda, buzzwords, yeah. Most of the school leaders NPR reached had little idea on how shootings got recorded for the schools. For an example, Federal Civil Rights Data Collection reports 26 shootings when the Ventura Unified School District in Southern California. "I think someone pushed the wrong button," said Jeff Davis, the assistant superintendent there. "The ongoing superintendent, Joe Richards, has been here for almost 30 years, and he doesn't remember any shooting," Davis added. Even the leftist news site Vox noted the risk of child getting killed by someone else at school in 2011 last year, for which there is final data, was about 1 in 5 million. Vox said the rate of serious violent victimization among students, rape, sexual assault, robbery, or aggravated assault, was about 1 in 1,000 in 2011, down from 1 in 100 in 1995. In 1995, 10% of students were victims of some kind of crime at school. In 2011, just 4% were. Northeastern University criminologist James Allen Fox observed, "We over-obsess about school shootings. Surveys show how the majority of students are afraid there will be a mass shooting at their school." These are very rare events. Scary though they may be, tragic they may, and we shouldn't over-respond. Interesting there, right? Limitation shootings, but the hard facts have proven no match for sustained hype for anti-gun activists. Police and schools have responded to the new paranoia with an array of drills that have been lame-brained even by government standards. Last January, numerous Indiana elementary school teachers were shot as part of the Safe Schools training program. According to Indiana State Teachers Association, sheriff deputies ordered teachers into a room at 4 at a time. He told them to crouch down and then shot them execution style with pellets in rapid succession, leaving several of them bloodied and many of them screaming, the union complained. Teachers were terrified but were told not to tell anyone what happened. Talk about full disclosure, right? Teachers waiting outside that heard screaming were brought into the room 4 at a time, and the shooting process was repeated. The union is lobbying lawmakers to add legislative language prohibiting teachers from being shot with any sort of ammunition during school safety drills, according to Indianapolis News. So the students don't count, right? How disgusting is that? Schools are increasingly turning their hallways into limitation of real mass shootings, complete with police officers firing BB guns and drama students enlisted to play victims made with fake blood and bullet holes. Occasionally, the drills are sprung on teachers and students without warning, as a student newspaper in Great Neck, New York, observed. A Pennsylvania teacher commented that she was more traumatized than ever trained. After teachers were shot with airsoft guns by fake active shooter, we had colleagues shooting colleagues. We had people getting hit with plastic pallets. People were screaming, trying to run. People were tripping over each other. It was just horrendous, Elizabeth Yanelli recalled. One of the primary beneficiaries of such nonsense is pharmaceutical companies that hustle anti-anxiety drugs for children. Former policeman Redford Davis commented on lockdowns, active shooting drills. These simulated execution rituals are conducted for fear-based mass social control process to traumatize, instill fear, hopelessness, personal empowerment, reliance on authority figures to save and protect you. You hear that? You really can finally hear that. I'll go on. A 2018 Pew Research Center survey found that most American teenagers worry about a shooting at their school. This comes at a time when children are already suffering from sharply rising rates of anxiety, self-mutilation, and suicide. According to a landmark study funded by the Institute of Mental Health, 32% of 13 to 18-year-olds have anxiety disorders, 22% suffer from mental disorders that cause severe impairment or distress. Among those suffering from anxiety, the median age of onset is 6. The Atlantic reported last year. Wow. Unheard of. To be very frank, my friends, they were doing this to kids even in the 70s. I know that for a fact. I can say my mom, always give homage to her on that, was vigilant in these areas. Now I read, exploiting dead children. School shooting paranoia first became widespread after the Columbine High School killing in 1999. 12 students and 1 teacher died in a shooting spree by 2 students that helped inspire other subsequent school shootings, especially a Newtown, Connecticut attack in 2012. It's interesting because there's claims they had rehearsals there too, and rituals just like that. That was addressed aforementioned. I'll continue. The Columbine killings set the precedent of maximum political exploitation of dead children. Attorney General Janet Reno praised local police response as extraordinary and a textbook example of how to do it the right way. Rest in shame, that scum queen. Bill Clinton declared that we look with admiration at the police officers who rushed to the scene to save lives. Clinton invoked the Columbine killings almost every day from April 20th through the mid-June 1999, when the House of Representatives narrowly defeated Clinton championed gun control legislation. In reality, no efforts were made to stop the assault. Concluded, William Erickson, a former Supreme Court justice who headed a commission that issued a damning 2001 report of the Columbine killings. Instead, hundreds of police waited outside until long after the 2 perpetrators had committed suicide. Instead of ongoing after the two killers, law enforcement set up a perimeter outside the school and waited for the assault to end, the report concluded. Hopefully folks in Broward County understand where I'm coming from. The shit happened in Columbine, and what the horrific event occurred at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida. And all you children of the Khmer Rouge, March for Our Lives, Moms and Man's Action, Enough's Enough, don't have the courage or the opportunity or the testosterone to read these damn reports. All you want to do is witch hunt. To me, that's laziness. Lack of aesthetics. Appealing police failures turned a multiple homicide into a historic massacre. A SWAT team had entered the building early on, but Jefferson County Sheriff John Stone ordered it to withdraw. Police spokesman said most of the SWAT teams were not set in, for fear they might set off a new gunfight, the New York Times reported. SWAT teams did not enter the room where the killers laid until hours after the shooting stopped. A badly wounded schoolteacher, Dave Sanders, bled to death because the SWAT team took 4 hours to reach the room he was in, even though students placed a large sign announcing, I'm bleeding to death in the window. Fears for officer safety paralyzed the Colorado response. Steve Davis, spokesman for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, said, "We had no idea who was a victim and who was a suspect, and the dead police officer will not be able to help anyone." Evan Todd, a Columbine student who was wounded in the initial attack, escaped outside and explained to a dozen policemen exactly what was happening inside. "They told me to calm down and take my frustrations elsewhere." Hey, Scott Israel, I have a question for you. Is your role model John Stone? Wouldn't be surprised. Do yourself a favor, sir. Don't run for sheriff. Get the hell out of my county. Leave Florida. Go back to your hometown police state of New York. And don't get me wrong, there's some awesome people in that city, too. They should tar and feather him up there, too. That's how sometimes I get insulted, folks. Same crap happens over and over and over again. And they want to create these politicized resolutions to calm our fears. John Adams warns us about this. Fear is a political benefit to those tyrants out there. I will proceed. Unfortunately, law enforcement officers learned little or nothing from the Columbine killings. At the Parkland High School in Florida in 2018, 8 sheriff deputies lingered cower outside while the shooting rampage by one ex-student continued, leaving 17 dead. A local cop who arrived during the shooting was urged not to enter the building. "Hey, be careful. The guy got a rifle. That guy's got a rifle," the deputy told him. After the killing, the local sheriff department put out a deluge of false explanatory claims that were shot to pieces by later revelations. The killer, Nicholas Cruz, should have been arrested numerous times because of his violence and threats at school and elsewhere, but school authorities avoid charging him, in part because of the Obama administration school grant program that sought to curb the school to prison. It's called a promise program, folks. And the superintendent for Broward County, that's Obama's buddy. I don't even want to say his name on the air. Let me see here. School to prison pipeline for the minority students such as Cruz. Paul Sperry of Rear Clear Investigations reported that the Parkland School was in the vanguard of a strategy adopted by more than 50 other major school districts nationwide, allowing thousands of troubled, often violent students to commit crimes without legal consequences. Thanks to such policies, as the Federalists noted, students charged with various misdemeanors, including assault, would now be disciplined through participation in healing circles, obstacle courses, and other self-esteem building exercises. But if schools expel too many students, they would forfeit federal grants. But the outstanding failures of the schools and the police are irrelevant to activists determined to invoke Parkland killings to forcibly disarm the American people. In August, March for Our Lives, an anti-gun group created after the Parkland shootings, which is actually started from the CA Corporation, my friends, which is located in Plantation, Florida. And the children's names aren't on that deed. All right? And I can say this about for March for Our Lives, they emulate the children of the Khmer Rouge. Anyone that supports that group, refute me if you dare. And I will go on here. A little bit jacked up, my friends. I'm just like, issued a peace plan for a safer America, which is nothing more than a wet dream. Rather than focusing on the failures of the official DOM, the activists called for forcibly reducing the number of firearms owned by Americans by a third, which would require government seizures of hundreds of millions of guns. The group also proposed to put any would-be gun buyers through bureaucratic hell, including a multi-step approval process overseen by law enforcement agencies that require background checks, in-person interviews, personal references, rigorous gun safety training, and a waiting period for 10 days for each gun purchase. Any permit to possess a firearm would have to be renewed annually, involving running another bureaucratic gauntlet. The group also called for the appointment of a federal anti-gun czar. The director of gun violence prevention would be responsible for propagandizing about the grave dangers possessing a firearm in one's home. Eric Holder would be a great candidate, right? And then we would all be safe, right? March for Our Lives did not propose any solutions to the lack of police spines or the automatic cover-ups and lies that follow shooting debacles. New gun control laws will do nothing to boost either the competence or courage of the police when every second counts. Unfortunately, there also appears to be no cure for the political exploitation, tragedies spurred or worsened by government debacles. This was originally came out November 2019 edition of Future of Freedom. Wow. All I gotta say, I love his work. He is absolutely right. And the truth of the matter is, my friends, I wrote a letter to the city Fort Lauderdale commissioners when they want to shut down that gun show at the War Memorial Auditorium, which is now defunct. And I called them out because there are multiple laws in the books that Nicholas Cruz couldn't own a firearm because on a due process he was declared mentally defected. There's multiple laws in there, including waiting periods. Because in Broward County, when it comes to long rifles, you have to wait 5 days too. All firearms, 5 days under local options, which is Broward Ordinance 18-96. And I talked about that in that show. You probably have to look through the archives on that, but definitely look that up. It's very explosive, okay? So, and of course, the firearm-free zones never worked. So all those assholes, excuse my language, I hate using vulgarity on the air like this. But all those individuals out there, you haven't learned anything from Columbine and 9/11. Because they're in firearm-free zones. That's a fact. And having the state trying to raise our kids, that's another problem. And all those parents out there, not all, but a great amount of them, that believe the government should take care of their kids, do yourselves a favor. Sterilize yourselves, okay? I'm sorry I hate to say that. Have your both genders with that mindset should have a vasectomy. I know it sounds brutal, but if you're gonna have this everyone but me attitude and want everyone to take care of the children you create, you don't deserve to reproduce. Irresponsibility to the core. Those are areas I get really disturbed from. I've been very damn blessed, and I can boldly admit that, not out of arrogance, but fidelity. Learn to pay attention, comprehend, study. My father, may so be forever free, used to bust my brothers and myself chops. Do your effing homework, you asshole. God, damn it, and all that. I'm like, good grief. But today I thank him. Have a conversation with my mom on that. She just laughs. But it's one of the areas, my friends, we gotta learn personal responsibility. Gotta bring that back. Old, ancient, traditional family values, not by government, by individuals. We all have different creeds, faiths, and viewpoints, but we all have things in common. We do care. The one that care is a common element. And that's a great start. It needs to be revived. Get the government out of our lives. And have honorable guardians too, because things do occur. Love your neighbor, but love yourself. I do believe in that commandment. So, do one more here. Actually, it's an open letter I wrote to Broward Commissioner Tim Ryan. It was about the Broward Resolution affirming the civil and natural rights of all residents of Broward County. I did a show on this. It's entitled The Broward County Resolution of May 6, 2003 nullifies prohibited laws. You say policies too. I should have said that. I should have added that to it. But it's very good. You should go in there, look it up. The link for the Broward County Resolution is in there as well, from the American Civil Liberties Union. And this letter was written December 16, 2019. It says, Greetings, Commissioner Ryan. On December 15, 1791, Virginia became the 9th state for being the 2/3 majority rule by ratifying the first 10 amendments to our U.S. Constitution entitled the Bill of Rights. And it officially means government no trespassing. Then on May 6, 2003, Broward County passed a resolution on affirming the civil rights of all residents of Broward County, which nullified the U.S. Domestic Enhancement Security Act of 2003 and Florida Health Powers Act of 2002. This decision from my fellow commissioners made me a proud resident of Broward County because of its abrogation of those items aforementioned, plus any repugnant law to both U.S. and Florida constitutions. When you examine Article 1, Sections 9 and 10 from those enactments, it confirms that any bill of attainder and ex post facto law is null and void, period. However, we the people of Broward County has a sworn obligation to ensure this proposition gets boldly implemented by defying any referendum or law that is announced unconstitutional with no exceptions. Based on this profound document, the 7th clause reads, The Bill of Rights of the United States Constitution and the Constitution of Florida guarantee those living in the United States the following rights: freedom of speech, assembly and privacy, equality before the law, and a presumption of innocence, access to counsel and due process in judicial proceedings, and protection from unreasonable searches and seizures. Also, 9th and 10th provisions read, Broward County has been and remains committed to the protection of civil rights and liberties for all citizens of Broward County. And the Board of County Commissioners believes that a threat to any one person's constitutional rights are a threat to the rights of all. Just a reminder to our elected and appointed representatives, have the oath to protect and defend both U.S. and Florida constitutions under Article 2, Section 5 of our state's supreme doctrine, and also our fellow registered voters have to the same. Moreover, illicit acts, whether from federal, state, or local, needs to be revoked, such as asset seizures without due process. And examples, all civil asset forfeitures, including extreme risk orders, anti-BDS laws, HB 741, Florida's Anti-Semitism Act, warrantless surveillance and facial recognition cameras within Broward County, including Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport, abolishing crimes that doesn't violate others, including our environment, etc. On the human element, it won't be a utopia, but as a whole can be more liberating community. I encourage Broward County in its entirety to examine both U.S. and Florida constitutions, including U.S. Bill of Rights and our state's Declaration of Rights, to the best of your abilities, and share that knowledge with others. Finally, I'll leave you a message by Thomas Paine. He makes his liberty secure, must guard his enemy against oppression. For he who violates this duty, he establishes a precedent that will reach to himself. Feel free to distribute this with your fellow peers and have my consent on publishing it to the county's bulletin. Thanks for your time. With kind regards. Fraternally, Craig L. Tote. Just gotta give them a reminder, friends. Eternal vigilance is the key to liberty. I've used it. One time, it was November 8th, 2011. Read the 7th clause of that document as one of my final piece on the merits. Counter. The agenda item was supposed to have you get a speech permit, whether you're rallying, protesting, petitioning, and leafleting, which is handbilling. And to be very frank, after I spoke a little over 2 minutes, there was a 6-8 minute debate with the commissioners themselves. It's like very intriguing. And the funny thing about it, I had no intent to make that happen. This is why, when you have facts on your side, you can win many battles, and people can learn from that. So, always be informed, educate yourself. You become a bolder activist, regardless of avenue you pursue. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening, plus feel free to download and share it throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or if you send something interesting I want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. I'll try to make sure all the footnotes will be available for this show, including my letter. Try to make that work. And finished. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.